after serving as Tulane's play-by-play voice, as I'm sure many would recall, for 3 years. Of course, the Hornets have new ownership, new look, sometime in the near future, new uniforms and a new name in all likelihood, but certainly new players, exciting at that, and lots to look forward to. Season opener October 31st. Spook everybody, right? Please give a warm welcome to Sean Kelly. Sean?
Thank you, Ken. And thank you. This is my first visit here to the Greater New Orleans Quarterback Club, and I'm honored to be here. As a matter of fact, I'm standing about 6 feet away from where I was back in the spring here at Manning's when we found out that the New Orleans Hornets had earned their first #1 overall pick in the NBA draft here as a New Orleans franchise. So this room's been pretty lucky for me, I guess, in our franchise. So it's good to be back. First of all, I want to congratulate LSU on a huge win this weekend, and congratulate Tulane as that finally got through, and I still have a lot of friends over there, and so I know they've been going through a lot. And so, and then the sweep, you know, I want to congratulate the Saints on their result this weekend as well. So I got to be careful now that Mr. Benson signs my check as well. So things are a little different. But I do remember, especially when I was at Tulane, but even still now, how great Mondays are when we get that, I call it the sweep, when we get LSU, Tulane, and the Saints all to win in the same weekend. So I'm hoping as the Saints get back to work, we'll have more of that as we go. So as Ken mentioned, it's all new. You know, the logo's still there, and for how much longer, I'm not so sure. I guess I did hear the other day, and I don't know if I'm spoiling some state secret here or whatnot, but I think the Hornets' name and logos are being retired at the end of the season. I get the question all the time, well, what's the new name or what are the new colors? And I have no idea. And no one ever keeps a secret in our business. So I got to think that probably by Christmas or New Year's, those beans will be spilled at some point. But we'll see. I mean, I had no idea Mr. Benson was as close as he was to buying the basketball team back in the spring, and that was quite a pleasant surprise. So maybe they're really good over there on Airline Drive about keeping secrets on those matters. So they must have some kind of a security team there, but we'll find out what that new name and everything else is. We're into our preseason now. October's a busy time for us. We had 4 games in 6 days last week to get the preseason kind of underway. Got our first road trip out of the way, and there's always those non-traditional NBA cities we get to visit. Charleston was a bright spot on my schedule, and it lived up to all the hype, so we had a good time in Charleston last week. And my wife was upset with me because I got to go to Charleston and she didn't. And people always ask me all the time, do you like the travel? I say, yes, it's probably one of my favorite things about the job. And then the next question is, you know, does your wife ever get to go with you? And then there's always the long pause, and I say no, which I wish she could. You know, it's funny. You all remember Bum Phillips when he was coaching the Oilers. Bob Costas asked him one time, you know, Coach, why does your wife travel to all the road games with you? And he said, because she's too ugly to kiss goodbye. And I thought that was kind of funny for Coach to say that, but I don't think I'll ever use that as the answer to that question about my wife traveling. But it was, you know, I saw that and I heard that, and I thought, Coach, you're a braver man than I guess. We're young. We're real young on that roster right now. It's interesting. It used to be when I first got into this business, I was the same age as the players, and it was great. I could really relate to the players, and on occasion we'd go out and do young people things and have a lot of fun. And then I've learned in this business now that they all stay the same age, and I just keep getting older, and it doesn't relate as well anymore. And now, for the first time in my career, I'm the same age as the head coach. So now it's getting really odd. So to think last week we were taking the floor with 2 19-year-olds, you know, that they were just barely off a high school campus a little over a year ago, and now we're asking them to do things at the highest level in our sport. And our oldest player is Roger Mason. He's 32, and then the drop-off is pretty severe. Jason Smith is 26, and then the rest of them, well, they're kids, really. So the young, they're challenging and whatnot. And I will say this. I've tried over the years. I don't like to fall into that trap of in a tight game or a big game, somebody hits a big shot and you call them a hero. You know, my brother's in Special Forces and all that. Those guys are heroes. I don't think, you know, NBA athletes can be heroes, so I try and stay away from that. And then you hear Coach Phil talk, and so when we say we're young and growing, I wouldn't call that adversity, because what they're going through there, That's adversity. So I'll just say that we're challenged a little bit, and I'm really excited. When I go around the city, I hear people speaking all the time about how great this team can be, and Anthony Davis is going to be a potential Hall of Famer someday, if not, certainly a perennial All-Star. And I want to temper the enthusiasm a little bit with our club. I think that you'll be proud to have your franchise being more competitive than it's been the last couple of years. I think that it's going to be a good year, and I think this is one of those young teams that on one night they're going to look like world beaters and destroy somebody, and then we're going to go out the next night and really stink. I mean, it's just kind of the way it goes. So over the course of 82 games in the regular season, I think there are going to be good nights and bad nights, and some of the other days said we could contend for a playoff spot, and that'd be exciting and everything else. It's hard to say in the West right now how realistic that is, but I will say this, and I'll relate it a little bit to when Chris Paul and David West and Tyson Chandler all kind of got together, and we had a young core there that took us quite a ways there for a little while. This young core here, I think, with Anthony and Austin Rivers and Eric Gordon too, and whatnot, and to see how Dell Demps and Monty Williams are working things, I think we're heading in that direction, and the timing may be just right. The Lakers are really loaded up right now, and I think they're the best team in the West, clearly. I think San Antonio's got one last little run in them left, and then Oklahoma City's still going to be pretty steady. But after that, there's teams like the Hornets and the Timberwolves and a few others that I think are going to be the next wave in the Western Conference, and so I think the timing's right with getting Davis and everything else, so it's going to be exciting. Our schedule's rough this year. But we have a lot of Friday night home games this year, and so I know a lot of fans are excited about that, and especially, like myself, I live up on the North Shore. It's hard. My kids don't come to games on school night. That's just the rule in our house, and so I know that's probably the same for a lot of folks. So to have Friday night games and some weekends on our schedule is of benefit to us as basketball fans in the city. There's really not a whole lot to tell you otherwise, as we're still kind of young in our season and camp. Coach seems to be pretty excited about the way the guys work. There were some good things and there were not some good things last week on our first road trip. We'll go to Atlanta this week, and then we'll be back home after that, and we'll get ready to wrap up October and get started, as Ken mentioned, on October the 31st. So I'm very excited. It's great to be here today. I'll be happy to entertain any questions about the team or where things are heading or about the NBA in general. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I've noticed in the preseason that he's been kind of mixing around the starting lineups and stuff. So what do you think the starting lineup's going to be come opening night? And also the Olympic experience that Davis had, and as well as Aminu. Do you see the growth in those two players from that experience?
Certainly. I don't have much to compare it to with regard to Davis because he's new to us as well. But you can tell that, you can always tell things on the road. Home's a whole different animal, but when you go out on the road, you really get to see how guys act and how they go through their routine. And I could tell last week that some of those guys back in the summer in London really rubbed off on him. He does 19-year-old things, and then he also then turns around and acts like a businessman going on a trip. And I know that's what he learned from them over the summer, is how you go about traveling, how you go about your day. What are better ways to take care of your body? I mean, I'm thinking about the way that I was at 19, and there's no way I could handle what he's trying to get through right now. So I think that the benefit of him with the team in the summer is that, and it's less about, put this foot here and hook this guy there on the floor, and it's more about, how you dress on a road trip, when to eat, what not to eat, make sure you stay out of trouble, all that kind of thing. I think that rubbed off on Anthony being around guys like Chris and LeBron and those guys. So in that sense, I think it was huge. And I think for Aminu, just flat playing over the summer helped him. Aminu is such a quiet guy. It's hard to even get him to say hello sometimes. And I know he's not being rude. That's just who he is. But he seems just more comfortable. And maybe that's what it is. Because here's the deal, and there are some nights where he will do something and my jaw will hit the floor with him, and then we'll go a couple of nights where I'm like, he can't play. It's frustrating. But then when you see those flashes and then you see him working in practice, it makes you think that, like a lot of guys in this league, it's going to take into his third or fourth year to show up. So I think he's going to start here early, and we'll hope for the best. And so you're asking about the starting five. I would say he's your three right now. I would say Vasquez is going to be the starting point guard to start off with, Gordon at the 2, and then Davis will be at the 4, and then at the moment Lopez, who is kind of surprising me a little bit, and I don't mean to slight Robin, but he's looking really good, and so he'll be our starting center. So and then you've got Jason Smith behind him, and then the Austin Rivers thing kind of comes into play there a little bit on how coach is going to use that. I'll give you another name real quick, Brian Roberts. I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he was with us with the summer league team and now in camp. And here's a young man that went to a small school, and then he's been in Germany the last 3 years. Well, coincidence or not, his team in Germany won their national championship all 3 years he was there. So he's played at that level in Europe, and now he's here, and he's just a flat-out scorer. He's a little small. And he's more of a Russell Westbrook type player. He's not a great distributor. He just finds ways to score the ball. So it'll be interesting to see what Coach does in those combinations on the floor, especially with Eric when he comes back, because it changes the dynamic, of everything when he's on the floor. He'll make Vasquez better too. So, yes, sir. Okay. Well, I was comparing him. I'm 6'1", and we're eye to eye. So, yeah. He's really fast. He just knows how to score. That I don't know if that's teachable or not. Whether it be a long three or just fall. The other night he's falling off the elbow with a guy shoving his right shoulder, and he changed hands and hit a shot. That's just raw talent. So if you can find a way to get that raw talent and teach him some of the tricks around the league, you'll probably be pretty good. Yes.
Younger, more athletic, so
Coach wants them to. When they get into a grinding half-court type deal, it doesn't look very good. At least it didn't last week in the preseason. So I think they're going to have to do that and play somewhat chaotic and get up and down the floor with those young legs. So until you can get, a better half-court set or a point guard who's a little stronger that can take some of that heat from a Tony Parker and some of those other guys, I think they're going to have to play pretty broken basketball for a while. That'll change as the guys get older.
What kind of role do you see Ryan Anderson playing?
Ryan's, and I could be way off, I think he's the next Peja Stojakovic, the more I watch him. He is just big enough as a 4 to post some guys up, and he's a big enough 3 who can shoot the three-point shot at the top of our game to really cause matchup problems for 3. So he's not really a 4 and he's not really a 3, so that's where Peja was all those years. And now, he leads the NBA in three-pointers last year, so he's shooting like Peja at this point. Peja, I think, was probably a little stronger than he is, but that's the kind of player I see him being. And if Aminu, it may be a deal where, depending on who the team is playing, is who's going to start at that 3. If the opponent has a more athletic, slashing small forward, that's Aminu's guy. If they can get a size mismatch, or we want to stretch the floor with a three-point shooter like Ryan, then he's going to get the minutes in those games. So, he might be the best addition as far as adding depth for us as there was all offseason. And that's including the number 1 pick. So, anybody else? Pretty good. I don't think you can say ahead. I've heard some numbers. I guess there was a story a couple weeks ago in the paper about the number 12,000 was thrown out there, and I know that was a combination of full season, half season, game plans, single. It's kind of this mishmash of different things to kind of get to what they think will be. Count on at least 12 a night, and we'll build on that from there. I think they're steady, and I somewhat relate this to 07-08. That was the All-Star year, right, Ken? Oh, wait, okay. So the first 2 months of that season, the team's pretty darn good, and there's not a whole lot of folks at the games, and I'm like, what's the deal? This is a team worth coming to watch. And then we got closer to All-Star, and then the team went on a 10-game win streak right around All-Star weekend, and we had this roaring, successful All-Star weekend. And then after that, you couldn't get a ticket to a Hornets game the whole rest of the way, and that was the year that we ended up in the second round of the playoffs. I kind of compared it to that a little bit. I think that people are kind of wait and see at the moment. They want to see these young guys play, but they're not ready to jump in just yet. Anybody else? Opening night. Fox Sports New Orleans. If you have Fox Sports Southwest on your system now, that's going to be Fox Sports New Orleans. Okay, so right, they're based in Texas, and what happens is on any given night, everything gets split off. I'm pretty fascinated by this. I know I'm running over time here, but they've got it now to where they they can almost send you whatever you want depending on what block you live on. It's pretty incredible. So if you have Fox Sports Southwest and you live in Norman, Oklahoma, they're going to type in the Thunder game for you, and on the screen it's going to say FS Thunder on it. If you live in Dallas, you're going to get a Stars game or a Mavericks game. Well, here, now what's going to happen is you may see regular Fox Sports Net programming all day, and then come 6:30, all of a sudden it's going to be Fox Sports New Orleans, and that's going to be our piece of the pie there. So I think that you're going to see, and no knock to my friends over at CST and all that, but with the backing of a national company like that, graphically, HD-wise, everything else is going to be a tremendous upgrade, not to mention 75 of the games on there. And don't forget, radio has them all. And I got a new partner this year. I think you're going to like John DeShazer in a radio role. A guy who's been a great column writer for this town is going to be, I think, fantastic on the radio. I think he's just got to get used to it, and that's what the preseason's for. And so we're working on that, and I'll be sure to send your hellos to him and tease him about he's got a face for radio just like me. So I'm looking forward to the season. I hope that you'll check us out on a new station, not to be named here, with the fine sponsor of 990 AM here. But we're looking forward to it, and maybe more so than ever before, I'm looking forward to new stories, because in our league, they're all over the place. I know you all remember Frank Layden, who has some New Orleans history here, former coach of the Jazz. I think he was the general manager when they were here in New Orleans. He asked Jeff Wilkins, their longtime forward, one time, if his bad play. Have you ever heard this, Ken, this story? He asked Jeff Wilkins if his bad play was based on ignorance or apathy, and Jeff paused for a moment, and he says, "Coach, I don't know, and I don't care." So that's the kind of stories we get in the NBA. Good luck to all of our football coaches this weekend, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And not her.